150 Sunset, which is at Sunset and Crescent Heights, and that's a project for 249 dwelling units, 65,000 square feet of retail and restaurant use. As part of that project, there'll be 15% affordable housing. That's one that you may have seen about it in the press. It was designed by Frank Gehry, and it's at one of the, if you will, gateways to our city, just right next to West Hollywood. That may be making its way to this committee. Another issue that I wanted to raise is on July 20th, I initiated an application for a cultural heritage monument, which is a very unusual step that is initiated by the planning director, and our city ordinance gives me the authority to do that. And this was an application for it's a craftsman home in Los Feliz, and it was the place where it was the first home for Walt Disney when he moved to Los Angeles from Kansas City. So it's actually where he started his animation career, and it was facing imminent demolition. And it was one of those issues that came to our attention, and very quickly I was able to initiate an application. And what that does is it puts a stay in any demolition until the Cultural Heritage Commission acts on that application, which has to happen within 75 days. But one of the significant points about this is it was really facing with imminent demolition. This gives the city and our commission the ability to evaluate its historical significance. And someone like Walt Disney, his first residence here in terms of how he started his animation career here, is something that's very worthy of consideration. But the reason why we were able to act so quickly was because of Survey LA, and that is the citywide survey of potential historic buildings within the city. So because of Survey LA, we were able to act very quickly on that. And the last item I want to mention is the City Planning Commission on July 14th heard and made recommendations to refinements to the city's baseline mansionization ordinance and baseline hillside ordinance. And these are the ordinances that govern development for single-family homes in the single-family zones. And as part of their recommendations, they're actually they're recommending reducing the amount of floor area ratio, or the amount of mass that can be built on a site. They eliminated certain bonuses and exemptions, further reducing the amount that could be built in these single-family neighborhoods, provided additional setbacks and building planes to really add more restrictions. So the idea is to really to limit the massing and the size of the homes that are being built in many of our single-family neighborhoods, because we've been experiencing many of our neighborhoods really out-of-scale development. And they also, in the hillside areas, did the same thing, but also tightened grading restrictions. So they have a series of recommendations that will be coming to this committee and then ultimately to the full city council. And with that, I conclude my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And I have a question. When will the department be ready to come back with the community plan framework options that we requested back in May?
Thank you. I'd like to invite one of our deputy directors, Kevin Keller, to the microphone to answer that.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon, council members. Kevin Keller, Deputy Director, City Planning. We were in front of this committee in June with the Community Plan Program memo. As of July 1st, we do have the staff. We are beginning to ramp up on hiring, and we are finalizing our report back in terms of following up on some of the key questions this committee asked in terms of CEQA preparation, some of the data and metrics we'll be using to determine the phasing of the community plan program, and also the idea of general plan batching. So we do anticipate that we would have that report ready in about 2 or 3 weeks. We met with Councilmember Huizar's staff to update them last Friday on this, and we're ready to move forward on that report back.
Okay, thank you very much. We look forward to it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll go to public comment. Someone filled out a card with PUTO. Mr. Herman, let me tell you before you start. Can you hold this time? This is the Planning and Land Use Management Committee, and there are several items on the agenda today. I am very strict in this committee as to allowing people to speak on those particular items. You know very well, as you show up to each council meeting and various committee meetings, what the rules are. I have no patience for your type of behavior at these meetings, and I will ask our officers to escort you out should you not follow the rules. I am warning you now. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so you see, you're talking about the planning of Oro status. Oro status on a historical home. We all appreciate historical homes, don't we? Wasn't that part of what we were discussing, sir? So I know I'm on topic when I talk about the Craftsman House. I grew up in a Craftsman House in El Sereno. Herman the puppet grew up in Boyle Heights, that son of a bitch. But regarding the relative report on ongoing development, we need to conserve all historical craftsman houses. Because without the history of historical monument homes, how will all of us survive? So just because Herman has a transgender voice today doesn't mean you can retaliate and harass him.
Thank you. Ms. Clerk, can you turn the clock around so I could see it as well? I can't see it over here. Okay, thank you. WS?
That's good. Your operations, you keep taking rent-controlled apartments from the poor and taking them and tearing the buildings down. That's your goddamn operations, and that's your policy. Your policy is poverty. You keep taking all of these rent-controlled apartments out of commission so you can tear them down and build more of this expensive, hard-to-afford shit. That is your planning policy. And that's why you got all these people living in tents and in their cars and in RVs. You got a lot of people that have rent-controlled apartments or fixed income, they're elderly, and you're just coming in and bulldozing their fucking apartments down. And we're tired of it. Read City Watch LA. They absolutely have great articles about this. Mr. Rigatoni, stop fucking the elderly out of their apartments.
Okay, we will receive and file item number 1. Item number 7.
Item number 7 is a hardship exemption from the mansionization ordinance to permit the construction of an apartment over a 2-car garage at 1032 South Victoria Avenue.
Thank you. This was scheduled to be on consent, but we have 2 public comment cards. So are you here to advocate on behalf of the
owner?
Okay, I think we should be. Oh, you're the applicant. Okay.
The applicant, yeah, representative.
Okay, Derek Burnett.
Yes.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Just basically, what we're trying to do is put another unit on the property for the owner's family because their first permit on it, which was permitted, originally did not have the moratorium on it, but he fell into a family crisis, which led him to neglect the lapsing of the permit, overseeing that, dealing with the crisis, and all of a sudden, the overall need for the unit is to help facilitate the family that was in need, his family members to bring on, to live there, as well as himself. So the moratorium, which we discovered later on, which delayed the new permit for the same development, nothing more. We were just trying to get demo 2 illegal structures on the rear of the property, which was a storage and an illegal patio, and also a dilapidated garage to make room for the 2-story unit, which would be above a new 2-car garage. So the issue here is the fact that his family has remained displaced through all this time, and we were just trying to accommodate them as soon as possible with the new development in the back, as well as himself.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. PUTO?
Now you pronounce my name for the record, Puto, because I'm a little pig. But I am not going to object to this situation because it is indeed a hardship. I know what it's like to be in a hardship when I was evicted from my home. I couldn't build to live in a bigger home, so these people should have an extension and a promotion to continue their work. Stop fucking creating hardships on these people. You get it? Do you? How about you? All you people have to listen to what they're saying. All they're asking is for an additional proposed project, 487 square feet for a two-car garage. Now, if there's space for an additional garage, let them have the goddamn garage. But all they're asking for is two garage space. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
WS?
Yeah, CD10, absolutely. After all, somebody that's in that district doesn't pay either of his mortgages.
Sir, you have to stick to the item on the agenda, please. And
it's
Mr. Spindler, I am warning you as well. You go to every council meeting, you disrupt the meetings, you speak out of order, you do not speak to the item on the agenda. I am giving you one warning in this meeting, and if you do not follow the rules, I will ask you to leave for today's meeting. Thank you.
You get a proposed project, you don't want anybody to speak about this two-story construction. Why not? Because the reason you don't is because this applicant didn't pay off anybody. That's why. Because he did it right. And you don't want people to know about that. You don't want these committees to approve this. You want to do these behind-the-scenes shit. But this guy came out and did this the right way, didn't he? 2,066 square foot house versus a 487 square foot extension. There's no way you can deny this. You couldn't deny this if you wanted to. So, you're fucked. You have to approve it.
Okay, any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move to approve the hardship exemption. So ordered. Item number 8 was scheduled to be on consent. However, we have two public speaking cards, PUTO.
Now, this is in the three-stick of Mr. Herb Wesson, a.k.a. Herman. He's asking for a backyard and a window change-out to repair single-hung type of casement. That means the thing that goes around the four corners of the perimeter of the window. See? So I am for this motion. I know you will agree and second the motion because the people in the crowd know you cannot go against my objection because I am for the 12 feet high private carport. Why can't people have shade in their home, God damn it? For the property located at 4320 West 12th Street. I reserve the time and I give it back to you, Mr. Chair.
WS.
Again, from the deadbeat zone to the ordinance zone. That's right, put your hand on your head. Now, what is this? A 290 square foot extension for our detached rec room? How much fucking treachery did you put this guy through to get this? That's not mansionization. That's an outside game room of less than 300 square feet. What's wrong with you people? Why don't you have an expedited permit procedure for something like this? Because it has to go through various payoffs. But again, he came here, filed it correctly, did it right, got it on agenda, because this person knows what the fuck they're doing. So congratulations for the Rowe family. Your hardship exemption will be approved. And please, in the future, more people come forward and be witnesses to this criminal body.
Okay, without objection, we'll approve this item and send it to council. Thank you. Item number 9 is another BMO ICO hardship exemption at 715 Sharkey Avenue. We have two public speakers. This item was on the consent calendar.
Mr.
PUTO.
Chair, Mr. Chair, we did not get a sworn affidavit from the applicant on this item.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please?
We have
couldn't
not
hear you.
received a sworn affidavit of the noticing requirement for this item from the applicant.
We have not received it, so what does that mean for us?
I'll defer to city attorney.
We can continue the item so that the clerk's office can have communications with the applicant and put it on a future agenda.
Okay, we'll continue it for a week. Item number 9, we will continue for a week, okay? Item number 10 is a BMO ICO hardship exemption for 10477 Charing Cross Road. Michael Silva?
Mr. Chair, also no sworn affidavit from the applicant on this item.
Okay.
Number 10? Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. Yes, sorry.
Do you have it?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Go right ahead, sir.
Good afternoon. I represent our homeowner, Dale Rosenblum, to put in a 495 square foot recreation room that he plans to use for sound, for piano, music, and to replace some cyclone fence that's exposed to the front with a block wall that texture and color to match the house. And it just doesn't conform with the ICO that's in place right now. We'd just like an approval on that to move forward with our project. Thank you.
Thank you. PUTO?
For the record, it's Puto. So, as I would like to mention for the third time, Mr. Rosenblum, you should have an A-OK to create such an exemption from the baseline maximization. In order for you to extend the fencing with stucco finish to the existing family two-story home. You see, Mr. Weezer, I'm on topic. Don't get upset because I'm replacing the dwelling with an attached garage of 20 foot by 40 foot. Something good for a swimming pool. That's why I demand you go forward and allow this exemption to go with Mr. Rosenblum, and you should waive his permit fees for making him come here today. Thank you.
WS?
Yes, getting back to my CD, CD5, Paul Koretz, a.k.a. Peppa Pig. So we have the one-story recreation music room. You forgot to put down how many square feet it is. You forgot that. How many square feet is this one-story recreation music room going to be? The house is 4861. We know the swimming pool is 20 by 40 feet. Yes, that's a big pool. A lot of chlorine in a 20 by 40 foot swimming pool. And they have a one-story cabana room and a one-story pool house. This is a goddamn big property. So please, in the future, tell us the square footage of the addition so people, even pigs, can know about it. So it will be approved. Thank you, Peppa Pig.
Okay, we'll approve this item without objection. Send it to full council. So ordered. Item number 11 is a BMO ICO hardship exemption for 611 South Warner Avenue. PUTO?
Or, I know Paul Koretz, Peppa Pig. We have something in common. But when it comes to the new manner style of additions with bedrooms, we have to remember we stick to the floor plan. That's why we get permits, so we don't impose on our neighbors. Now, regarding old business on item 10, there was a discrepancy. But on this one in particular, you see, there's no discrepancy. So I am an I vote You vote, Englander, you vote, Mr. Chipmunk, with me for the 2,110 square foot residence in 3 bedrooms. 3 bathrooms. This sounds like a goddamn mansion. Good for you. Build on. Build on.
WS.
Oh, this one's a tough one. Got a 50% density coming up here. 1,890 square feet added on to 2,110. What's the size of the lot? And are you following the mansionization guidelines on lot size versus baseline? I don't know. So we're going to double something to 4,000 square feet. It's an entitlement. Are we getting Quimby fees? How much Quimby fees are we going to get for this? List the fees, because the fees are the big thing, because this square footage in this zip code is going to send this property into the stratosphere of value. So they'll do it, they'll double it, they'll put it on the market, they get $450, $500 a square foot. That's going to be the way to go. So thank you for buying our councilman Peppa Pig.
Okay, with that, we'll approve this item and send it to full council. No objections, so ordered. Next item, item number 2. Can you please read into the record, please?
Item number 2 is the appointment of Mr. Oliver Delgado to the Central Los Angeles Planning Commission.
Great, welcome, and thank you for your willingness to serve on this commission. If you could please share a little bit about yourself and your thoughts on serving on this commission.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having me, by the way. It's been an absolute pleasure to be considered for this appointment. I think it's a fantastic way to continue servicing the city of Los Angeles. I was born and raised in the city, born in Echo Park and raised in South Los Angeles by Washington High School. And for me, it's been such a ride to see the city go through its revitalization, and I'd be honored to be able to help usher in that new era.
Thank you, Mr.
Sure.
Harris Dawson.
Thank you so much. I'm just sitting here beaming with pride. I've had the pleasure of knowing Mr. Delgado since about age 12. Much longer hair and a little bit louder voice, but always dedicated to creating a better community, whether it was in South LA where he lived growing up as a adolescent and teen, or in the center of the city now, or serving the mayor and various council members in his career. So congratulations to you, and very, very proud to support a homegrown, with no pesticides product of our city. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you very much. We look forward to working with you. Certainly this commission is one of they're all busy, but this one is certainly busier, just given all the activity that is going on in this jurisdiction. So we look forward to working with you, and thank you for your willingness to serve and volunteering your time.
Fantastic. Thank you, council members.
3 public comment cards. Antonia Ramirez. Is Antonia Ramirez here? No. WS.
Yes, you can go upstairs tonight at 4:30 and see your new Central Area Planning Commission, the absolute second worst planning commission in all of Los Angeles. You got these 4 out-of-control, power-hungry, psychologically impaired women upstairs approving any goddamn thing to tear down anybody's house that wants to come up there. The 5th one, her name was Bricia Lopez. She resigned because she just got tired of going there. So you're going to be the only male, Oliver, and you're going to have to go up there and get these 4 women under goddamn control, because they're out of control up there. They're sitting there pissing all over the place, reopening things, and the Hollywood Association can talk to you about it. I nominate you for chair. Get up there and get these 4 fucking cunts under control, because they're out of control up there in that goddamn meeting.
PUTO.
Well, you see, it's very difficult working around women, because when Michael cunt was in the meetings. He talked about the cunts. And such wonderful women can do great jobs. But Oliver is a man, and he has a challenge with us women because we have women's rights too. We don't like sexual harassment. We do not want any type of sexual harassment. You see? I'm a
Sir,
woman.
you're not speaking on this topic. If you could please speak to this topic. That is, Mr. Herman, I warned you in the beginning, and this is your official warning that we are required to do, and you now have your warning. The second time I feel that you are not following the rules, you will be escorted out. And I hope you do it.
Oh, okay. Well, because you're threatening me, I feel threatened. I'm going to talk from the mayor and the city commissions relative to the fucking appointment of the fucking son of a bitch, you. But Oliver Delgado, congratulations for coming to the Central Los Angeles area planning with these bitches. Because bitches bitch, like me. I'm a bitch and I bitch.
We will move this item with no objections. And when is it coming to council?
Tuesday, the 16th.
Okay, great. Thank you. So ordered. Next item, item number 3.
Item number 3 is the transfer of authority of redevelopment plans from the redevelopment agency to the city, as well as a proposed ordinance to clean up various sections in the codes.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. Patricia Diefendorfer, Planning Department staff. This item, actually, the City Planning Commission on May 23rd approved and recommended that the council take these actions, which included adopting a resolution to transfer the land use authority for the redevelopment plans to the city, and a concurrent ordinance to clean up code references to the CRA and to establish a process for implementing the redevelopment plans. The CPC action was transmitted to Plum back in June of 2014. Plum heard this matter at a meeting in August of 2014 and continued the item. Since that time, staff has been working with legal counsel to evaluate the implications of assuming the land use authority from the CRA, and is still in the process of doing that evaluation in cooperation with the mayor's office. That's our report currently.
Thank you. So we have a ways to go with this, correct? And we still have to draft the information. This is more of a verbal update on where we are with this. Okay.
This is a verbal, Patricia Diefendorfer for Planning Department staff. This is a verbal update, and we are still working on the specifics of the ordinance and the resolution, and hope to come back at some future time with those items.
Okay, so we have the intent of continuing this for 90 days to get the full written ordinance back to us. So for now, we'll take that.
Okay. Is the 90 days for a report back or the ordinance, just to clarify?
We'll get the report back in 90 days. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. We have several public comment cards. Fran Offenhauser, and then we'll hear from Alexander Harridan and Steve Diaz.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Fran Offenhauser, and I think I was here 2 years ago to speak on the same subject on behalf of Hollywood Heritage, and I wanted to make some points. I think the question is, am I in favor of continuing the drafting of the ordinance? The answer is yes. I spoke on behalf of Hollywood Heritage to point out that the redevelopment plan in Hollywood was quite unusual relative to the other redevelopment plans, so that in drafting an ordinance for the transfer of land use authorities and responsibilities from CRA to city planning, there were some very unique factors in Hollywood that needed to be considered. And at that time, what I mentioned was that it was really important to include in the ordinance some kind of scheduling of a transfer so that the planning staff could be trained in these issues and could be trained by CRA.
Great, thank you.
Is it possible to extend my time? Just
No, it is not, because then
So-
I have to be consistent with everyone. And
So what I'd like to do, I'm sorry I had a death in my office today. I haven't been able to write my comments up, which I would like to pass in, and I would like you to accept them as being accepted on time.
Okay,
Thank
we
you.
could do that. Thank you. Alexander Harden and Steve Diaz afterwards.
Good afternoon. My name is Alexander Harnden. I'm an attorney with the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, and we represent the plaintiffs to the Wiggins Settlement Agreement. I'm just here to remind the committee that the city and the CRA-LA have ongoing obligations under the Wiggins Agreement that are not affected by any transfer of land use authority. And we've submitted a letter detailing those and reiterating our comments from 2014. Any transfer of land use authority must ensure continued compliance with the requirements of the Wiggins Agreement to preserve low-income housing units covered by that agreement. The Wiggins settlement is a valuable tool to help deal with the affordable housing crisis we're experiencing in LA, and we invite the city and CRA to meet with us to discuss how a transfer of land use authority can be accomplished without a breach of that agreement. Thank you.
Steve Diaz.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Steve Diaz, and I am with LA CAN. I'm here today to urge this committee to instruct the planning department, specifically Councilmember Huizar, to tell the planning department to work with Wiggins plaintiffs and organizations such as LA CAN before the final ordinance comes forward. The Wiggins settlement was instrumental in ensuring that downtown could be a mixed-income community and has been an instrumental tool in ensuring that displacement and rapid gentrification doesn't happen in downtown and parts of Skid Row. So as this process is moving forward, I applaud the committee for taking its time and asking for a report back in 90 days, but I also would like to request that there'll be some enhanced communication that happens as this process goes forward to clear up any potential conflicts or any potential misunderstandings. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. WS and then PUTO.
Yes, Puto will speak next. Now, CRA is dead. John Walsh, HollywoodHighlands.org. He helped kill it. Thank you, John Walsh. We don't want it. It's dead. Buried. Let it go. Get rid of all of this stuff. Rebuild. Do what Governor Brown did when he abolished it. The money needs to go back to the people. And that's what they're saying with the Skid Row area. That's what they're saying with all of this. Now, as you saw, they were selling all those assets. Yet those little fire sales, little parking lots and big parking lots. So you already did all of the dirty work. Drop the CRA. Don't try to hide it behind something. Get rid of it. Let it die. You're building enough shit. You don't need the CRA. CRA's dead. It's buried. Adios, and good riddance to the CRA.
Okay, PUTO.
I can go back to the CRA days when we had a promise to rebuild Boyle Heights and El Sereno. And Cedillo will back me up on that. All broken promises made by Jose Huizar and demolished by Jerry Brown when I went up to Sacramento and told Jerry Brown, take the goddamn money back. The fool is not spending the money. He's not using the money. Look what Cesar Chavez looks like, formerly Brooklyn. It still looks like the same rundown eyesore bullshit that elected dumbass official from Boyle Heights left it and continues to leave it. It doesn't look like Broadway. It looks like shit. The same shit that I keep talking about that happens over and over. The CRA is done. The CRA is over. The CRA needs to be demolished, and the FBI needs to investigate where the fuck the money went.
So we'll continue this item for 90 days and be back with a report back. Item number 4.
Item number 4 is various approvals and appeals for a mixed-use office project at 5901 Sunset at the intersection of Bronson and Council District 13.
Thank you. Staff here to present on this item first, please. Planning staff? Yep.
Great. Good afternoon. Thank you
Sorry,
very much
council member,
for
you
having
wanted
us
planning
here.
staff to
We're
present?
going to hear from, planning staff first, please. We're going to hear from planning staff. Yeah.
Good afternoon, members of the Plum Committee. My name is Lucy Ibarra with the Planning Department's Major Projects Section. The project before you is 5901 Sunset. It was approved by the City Planning Commission on April 29th. It was a mixed, predominantly a commercial structure, office with retail, grocery, and 5 levels of above-ground parking. Now, the 5 levels of above-ground parking were reduced at commission from the originally proposed 7 stories of above-ground parking. I just want to make clear that the changes that were done at CPC, in which are reduction of the originally analyzed project, are within the scope of the environmental analysis that was undertaken for this project, and any changes do not constitute new changes for the purposes of evaluating any changes resulting from that for purposes of complying with CEQA. The determination was issued on April 29th. The appeal period ended on May 16th. You have before you 2 appeals of the project's determination, and those, I believe, those appellants are here to speak to you on their appeal points. Staff recommends or requests respectfully that we be allowed to follow public comment so we can respond to any issues that are raised during the public comment period and to any appellant concerns.
Thank you. And will you typically take the appellants first before the applicants? So I'm going to call the appellants up first. We're trying to identify them in our public speaking cards. So these are the appellants of record: Beverly Palmer and Lisa. You guys are together. Lisa Brereton. Who's the appellant of record that could...
I believe it's Beverly Grossman Palmer for the AIDS Foundation.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then we have Daniel Wright representing. So those are your 2 appellants.
All right. So, and as both of you know, appellants and applicants have 5 minutes for their presentation. All other public comment is 1 minute. So if we have there's 2 separate appeals? There's 2 separate appeals. Okay, so each would have 5 minutes. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, council members. First, I'd like to address some of the remarks that were in the applicant's response to the appeals. And specifically, I'd like to address his comments, the applicant's representative's comments about my client, the AIDS Healthcare Foundation. I'm here on behalf of AHF, which is a large nonprofit organization active in Hollywood and throughout the city and indeed throughout the world, addressing issues associated with AIDS and HIV. The applicant's remarks indicate that AHF's opposition to this project is on a personal basis, but nothing could be further from the truth. The AIDS Healthcare Foundation has a broad mission that includes all aspects of quality of life for the AIDS patients that are at the core of its mission. The Hollywood area is a particular area of concern for AHF because much of its work and many patients are concentrated there. A list of AHF's facilities in Hollywood demonstrates this. Their headquarters are at Argyle and Sunset. Across the street from headquarters, there's a large pharmacy and an out-of-the-closet shop which provides free rapid HIV testing to the public. There's a health clinic at Vermont and Sunset, offices at Santa Monica and Seward, and further offices at 6500 Sunset. And these are just some of the closest facilities to the project site. Of course, there's not a minimum distance that one must be from a project in order to be aggrieved by its approval. Thousands of persons either served by or employed by AHF are affected by the proposed project, including hundreds of employees who must navigate area traffic to get to their workplaces, the patients who must transport themselves and perhaps find parking for the clinic and pharmacy, and customers of the thrift shop, which provides significant funding for AHF's work. AHF is a strong proponent of truly affordable housing, as the vulnerable community of patients it serves is often affected by lack of stable housing. Office projects like this do nothing to help this population and only increase the pressure on existing affordable housing by drawing high-paid workers into the neighborhood. AHF is aware that the development agreement in the next item, item 5, includes a contribution for affordable housing, but if Hudson Pacific really wanted to help with affordable housing, it could do more. Why not provide a site on which to construct affordable housing, one of the major barriers to such housing? For all these reasons, AHF is aggrieved by the approval and has abundant standing to bring this appeal. Traffic is a major concern for AHF and for the numerous residents who provided letters opposing the proposed project. The developer's response to these appeals claims that the Caltrans supports the project due to some voluntary agreement to fund mobility improvement on the 101 corridor. The developer concedes it has done no study of the impacts of the proposed project on the freeway, even after Caltrans noted such a study was needed and requested one. Instead, the developer offered to voluntarily work with Caltrans and include funding in the development agreement for these unspecified improvements. The development agreement doesn't include this funding, and even if it did, it wouldn't be adequate under CEQA. The impacts of the project on the freeway have not been studied, no mitigation has been proposed, and the public would have no opportunity to comment on such plans. Moreover, the redesigned project will introduce new noise impacts to nearby residents, and that's a fact. The redesign shifts the truck access point from a fully enclosed parking garage to an alley that is immediately adjacent to residential units at 1527 Bronson Avenue. The applicant submitted a new noise analysis on August 4th or 5th, just several days before this hearing. My client was able to find an expert to review that analysis on a short basis, and the expert, Derek Watry of Wilson Area, concludes that based on the applicant's own DEIR data, that the noise from delivery trucks, and the applicant states they could arrive as early as 6 a.m., that the noise from these trucks will be a significant impact on residents. The DEIR says at 50 feet from a tractor trailer, the average noise level is over 70 decibels. These tractor trailers will be passing within 10 feet of the windows of the apartments. The wall that the applicant plans to construct on the property line is not high enough to impede noise from reaching a second-story window. And the analysis that has been submitted last week is so scanty and no backup data is provided that no one can really understand whether it truly considers the impact of this truck noise or how that analysis was actually conducted. It doesn't support a conclusion that it's not substantial evidence that there is no significant impact from this project. Finally, the bulk of this project is significant. The municipal code provides a definition of how you calculate floor area, and that excludes some things, but it doesn't mention parking. That was not followed here. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel Wright.
Good afternoon, council members. Daniel Wright of the Silverstein Law Firm on behalf of Hollywood Residents for Responsible Development, Jason Vogel, and Bronson Avenue Properties. Let the record reflect that we have submitted a supplement to our land use appeal to the record, and it is before you. Despite its length, it contains complete documentation of the history of the city charter prohibition on project-based general plan amendments and the proceedings of the Hollywood General Plan Consistency Program. These are documents that you have not seen before, the General Plan Consistency Program, and it's significant in terms of yet another fatal flaw in the whole concept of this project, which I'll get to in a moment. Based upon our appeal materials, the project is proposed should be returned to planning and to be considered for a code-compliant project or a less impactful project. It should not be approved today, particularly given the gravity of the information that's been submitted to the record by both the applicant and the appellants. As I've discussed in front of this body before, because there's a lack of procedural rules, I want to enter an objection that the planning staff reserves the right to come up later after all of our testimony and give us no opportunity to respond at whatever contentions they make. Instead of presenting the project to you, they are waiting until the end, and we are given no opportunity to respond. That is inherently unfair, particularly with respect to my clients who own properties that will be significantly impacted immediately adjacent to this property, consistent with California constitutional law. Now, first of all, let me just say, Beverly concentrated on a number of the technical issues, and there are several important ones. But you guys are policymakers, and so the question is, does this project even make sense out of the starting gate? And our contention is this project should have never seen the light of day from the first conference room meeting, because the zoning that's in place here, and you need to realize this, is that the upper two properties are parking. They're zoned parking, which means no structure above ground, only below ground. Why do we have those zones? We have those zones to create transitional height districts in between tall, impactful buildings and residential neighborhoods that are sensitive. The zoning in place in this on these properties was specifically intended to protect the properties owned by my client until, of course, they weren't, which was that the applicant came in and said, give me everything that I want. I want to build a parking podium that goes up 90 feet so that these people's two-story bungalows will be staring out at a brick wall. And that's the way the project was originally proposed until it was modified in response to objections by my client. And now they've moved this truck delivery alley on the northern property line with a wall that's not tall enough, and diesel fumes will spew directly over the wall into my client's properties. And the 90-foot wall is now set back 14 feet to create an echo chamber of sound at 6 a.m. in the morning. And they contend incorrectly in their papers that this is not a significant impact. As Beverly and her expert has shown, it does. None of this is, so basically what they've said is, let's get rid of this planning, this protective parking zone planning, and let's just allow a commercial building to be plopped down on all of this lot. And this is exactly what the reason of what that planning zone was for, to protect people. You are going to significantly negatively impact the value of my client's property because of this. And in order to enable all of this, they've asked for a general plan amendment, which all of you have heard, and you know that the city charter includes a provision that says that a general plan amendment, the area affected by the general plan amendment itself, must constitute significant social, economic, or physical identity. A parking lot does not meet that test, clearly. Now, they try to say, oh, well, it's associated with a movie studio, or it's world-famous Hollywood. Well, you could, through association, you could justify a postage stamp for a general plan amendment. That is not the law. Finally, on the environmental review, our comments also include a detailed examination of greenhouse gas. There has not been an adequate analysis here. And therefore, for all of these reasons, we strongly urge that you protect the adjoining landowners and residents by taking this project back and rethinking it. It needs to be code compliant or less impactful. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll hear from the applicants. Christopher Barton, Chris Pearson, and James Pugh.
Good afternoon. Christopher Barton with Hudson Pacific Properties. Thank you very much for having us here today. First, I just want to talk quickly about Hudson. We're a well-capitalized, publicly traded real estate investment trust. Our roots are in Hollywood. We actually started our company in Hollywood in the studio business back in 2007. And today, we're one of the largest landlords in Southern California, specifically in Los Angeles. We've built a number of great projects, many in Hollywood, including the Netflix project right down the street from this. The Technicolor building project, which was the first office building built in Hollywood in 30 years, which we think really helped, the gentrification of Hollywood, the resurgence there. And we own these two great studios, Sunset Bronson and Sunset Gower Studios. We've also this past year did a deal with KTLA, keeping them in Hollywood, which was, we think, very big for the city of Los Angeles. They were the last radio station that was based in Hollywood that was looking to move out, and we were successful in keeping them there. We also restored the Hollywood Warner Brothers studio building, and we've made significant upgrades to our studios over the years. When we bought them, they were dilapidated. Lastly, one thing I want to bring up is that we've been very active in the community. You'll see in the packets in front of you that describes not only the project, but what we've done in the community. We have numerous liaisons with all the schools in the area, a lot of the nonprofit organizations, where all of our employees donate their time, and the company donates their money on a continuous effort to just have a great relationship with all these organizations. And you'll see that continued in our development agreement. And this is the first development agreement with an office builder where we're actually contributing up to $1 million for affordable housing. There's no other deal like this that's ever occurred in the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll continue with the applicant's time. I wanted to cover three main issues, one about the project, two about the entitlements in the EIR, and three about the appeals. On the project itself, as Chris mentioned, this is a single building project located directly on Sunset Boulevard. It's only 15 stories high. I think we need to keep the scope and magnitude of this building in context with what the appellants are claiming is a disastrous project. It just simply is not. You'll see on slide 13 in your PowerPoint presentation and slides 20 and 21 the difference between the existing conditions and what this project would propose. It's a dramatic improvement from the baseline conditions. As far as the entitlements in the EIR goes, I also think it's important to recognize this project has been going on for over 3 years. This project was filed when the original Hollywood Community Plan was in place, and then it was rescinded, as you know, and we amended the entitlements, and now the city has brought the community plan update back, and this project would be consistent with it again. Another thing to mention on the development agreement is there's substantial community benefits associated with it, and as Chris mentioned, and I want to impress upon the committee, this is, I believe, the first commercial building to offer affordable housing payments. So that's important to recognize. With respect to the appeals, you're obviously aware of the appellants, the Silverstein Law Firm and AIDS Healthcare Foundation have been attempting to stop virtually every development in the city. We think that this is a similar approach here, regardless of what we do to the project. We think it borders on CEQA abuse instead of good planning and being involved in the process. Your planning staff has responded to the appeals in detail. We concur with that response, which is to deny the appeals. We've also provided over the last several months and more recently last couple weeks additional evidence to support the conclusions in the EIR. There are no new significant impacts. And finally, I would say in respect to the process, again, 3 years of environmental review. We've had multiple hearings where there's been unlimited amount of testimony at the hearing officer hearing allowed. We have tremendous amount of evidence in the record to support the findings and the decisions. We've outreached to the community, including the appellants, who are unwilling to come to any type of reasonable agreement with us. And we have deep analysis throughout the EIR process as well as a response to the appeal that covers this. So we want you to support the project and move it to City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Brereton, Laurent Gubler, Fabio Conti.
Good afternoon. I'm Liza Brereton. I'm an in-house counsel at AIDS Healthcare Foundation. And the developers often try to make the argument that AHF is off base and has personal motives for the opposition to this and similar projects. It's really a red herring, and it's meant to distract from legitimate issues that AHF staff, patients, and the communities we serve face in LA. AHF is very concerned about the glut of these high-end overdevelopments because of the negative impacts they have. For example, a clear relationship exists between access to affordable housing on the one hand and health outcomes for people living with HIV/AIDS on the other. The overdevelopment of these high-end buildings that cater to high-end clientele crowd out existing and potentially new affordable housing, and thus dislocates folks with HIV with limited means from their work, family, communities, established transportation patterns, and can potentially cause housing instability and even homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm LaRon Gubler, President and CEO of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. With more than 80 projects now in development in Hollywood, in my view, the 5901 Sunset Project is among the most important of all in Hollywood. Why? Because it will create permanent jobs and that are decent jobs in our city. The creation of such jobs has to be a major priority of Los Angeles. With 1,600 housing units now under construction in Hollywood and another 7,000 in the pipeline, it's important that we create a jobs-work balance in Hollywood. The Icon project that Hudson Pacific is building across the street will bring more than 1,000 jobs to our community. This project is similar in scale and could bring a similar number of jobs. Let me also say Hudson Pacific has been a great community partner. They deserve a vote of confidence. Please approve this project.
Thank you. Fabio Conti, Shamari Davis, and David Kirsch.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Fabio Conti, and for over 20 years I've been a Hollywood resident, restaurateur, and property owner. I'm also the president of the Sunset and Vine bid, and I am here to express our support to this project. These developers have vigorously embraced the bid. They participate regularly to board and committee meetings, bringing so much knowledge and experience to our organization. They are also involved and founded several local school, non-profit organizations, and community groups. We welcome this great project that is going to provide the area with so many needed jobs, retail stores, and activity. The project is a great fit for the area, and the benefits are many. It is the kind of project that will shape the future of Hollywood as a creative contents hub. It will bring the kind of names that we are eagerly trying to attract, like Apple, Hulu, and Amazon. It is also designed to mitigate traffic, since they are giving bicycle the priority that this way of transportation deserves, but hardly get. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, commissioners, city councilmen. Thank you so much for seeing this project. My name is Shamari Davis. I'm a business rep for IBEW Local 11, Electricians Union, and we full and wholeheartedly support this project. We want to make sure in LA that when we have developers that are responsible, that pay good wages, benefits for workers, that we definitely as a city need to get behind them. This is a homegrown company, and this project is a commercial project. There's no housing on this project. IBEW Local 11 is definitely in favor of affordable housing, but in this case, that has no merit. So there's no way they shouldn't be trying to stop this project because it's a commercial project in Sunset. We want to definitely continue to beautify Hollywood and definitely support developers that support good workers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is David Kirsch. I'm the executive director of the Carpenters Contractors Cooperation Committee, which is made up of the Carpenters Union and the contractors. We're here to show our strong support for this project. As has been previously mentioned, there's been quite an effort made out to reach out to the community, and the jobs that will be created, not just the permanent jobs, but the construction jobs, these are good paying jobs. These are jobs that promote the middle class in Los Angeles, where workers can earn good wages with benefits, with pension, where we have good apprenticeship and training opportunities. And so we want to continue to support those developers that believe in building with quality, supporting quality construction and good lifestyles for all of us here. So again, I'm happy to be here. It's good to come here and to just show support for developers that choose to do the right thing. Thank you.
you. Jason Vogel, George Abrams, and Marty Shelton.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Jason Vogel, the owner of the adjacent property right here, 1527 North Bronson Avenue. You'll hear a lot of legal arguments here today, but the real fact of the matter is that the developer's just trying to stuff too much building into too small a lot, only a little over an acre and a half. Their similarly sized building across the street is on a much larger campus and part of 4.5 acres, what they designated for that one. My family bought this property, my wife and I, in 2002, and at that time we were concerned about the lot next door. We did a thorough study of our zoning and their zoning, and we found that it was zoned for low-density commercial, and any structure would have to be 90 feet away from our property, allowing residents to enjoy light and air. Over the years, we have put hundreds of thousands of dollars into improving what was a terribly dilapidated property, and we're still putting money in. We've had some of the same residents since 2002. Hudson Capital originally purchased this lot along with the Tribune Studios in 2008. It's way too close, and it overshadows. It just overshadows the neighborhood. It's gargantuan. It's trying to fit too much building into too small of a lot. It's not appropriate.
Thank you. George Abrams and Marty Shelton.
Yeah, it's absurd to call this project transit-oriented. There's no north-south bus route serving this project. The narrowest are at Vinar and Western, 2/3 a mile away. There's only one Metro Rapid bus on the street, but when I checked Next Bus, I found there was only one single bus on the entire route between downtown and Pacific Palisades, and that's hardly service. Nearest rail is 3/4 a mile away, either direction at Vine or Western and Hollywood. And the Dash bus, the Hollywood Dash bus, which runs by it, is just a zigzag route. And if we're to provide connection to rail, it would have to go 2 miles to Highland or 2.5 miles to Santa Monica. And Starline Tours provides more direct service than this Dash bus. And this leaves only one lousy local bus route to serve this project, and that is hardly transit-oriented.
Marty Shelton, Doug Haynes, and Ron Miller.
Members of the committee, my name is Marty Shelton. I represent the ownership of the property. It's a shopping center at the corner of Sunset and Gower, 6114 Sunset Boulevard. We support the project for two basic reasons. 5901 Sunset Boulevard project is of vital importance for Hollywood and the community, to keep Hollywood a thriving economic center that attracts the creative economy industries. The location of this project, in conjunction with Sunset Bronson Studios, Sunset Gower Studios, Simon Studios, and Emerson College, creates the strongest creative corridor in Los Angeles. The project maximizes the value of an underutilized site through the replacement of a surface parking lot with a mix of new office and community-serving retail uses, which is consistent with the anticipated market demand. It helps to continue to activate the east edge of Sunset Boulevard. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Doug Haynes. First, on behalf of Hollywood Studios District Neighborhood Council, the applicant's been gracious enough to come before our council on 2 occasions, and we do appreciate that. However, at this point, our neighborhood council doesn't have a position on the project. As for myself, having been a long-time resident of Hollywood, I have concerns about this and many other projects. The reduction in the height is only from 260 feet to 230 feet. So there's only a 30-foot reduction. Our view sheds are slipping away on projects such as this. The massing of this project is overwhelming to this block. I would compare it to Columbia Square, which was originally approved for 39 stories, but was significantly reduced by Kilroy Realty when they purchased the site into a beautiful project that everyone in the community loves. Also, Emerson College also had carved out a space so view sheds could be used. I believe personally there's a better project here, and I hope that will be looked at. Thank you.
Ron Miller and Mickey Jackson.
Good afternoon. I'm Ron Miller, Executive Secretary of the LA Orange County Building and Construction Trades Council. We fully support this project. This is a good developer. He came to us because he recognizes the value in a trained workforce that we bring to the table, and he's doing the right thing in this community by building this building. They're creating a central hub of commerce. And we hear the same old naysayers, whether it's the gadflies that show up here or the folks that don't want to build anything and progress into the next century. We need to support this building. The AIDS Healthcare Foundation needs to stick to their mission statement and take care of the critically ill patients that have the disease. And let us stick to building and the building trades. Thank you.
Mickey Jackson, Stephen Whitten, and WS and PUTO.
Somehow I think the applause wasn't for me. Mickey Jackson. I'm here with the Coalition to Preserve LA. We're a coalition that has put forth an initiative for the March ballot. The initiative basically tells everyone to obey the law. It's already against the law to give out these general plan amendments at will, contrary to the charter, and y'all need to just stop it. And we're going to try to put some teeth in that with the initiative. We're going to try to save LA. It does not stop all building. That is just silly. It affects maybe 5% at most of the building, and it's things that require general plan amendments. They aren't legal anyway. Excessive zone changes, mega projects, and I think LA needs protection from that.
Stephen Winded.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Whitten. I have lived and worked in Hollywood for 20 years, and I'm here to speak in support of this project. I'm here representing myself. As someone who helped create and organize the Hollywood Studio District Neighborhood Council, I served as their chair for 2 terms. I have a great love of Hollywood and a deep appreciation for smart development. Hudson Pacific has a proven track record of reaching out to the neighborhood council, residential, and business communities in the early stages of planning. The community should be proud of their contributions to those early conversations. What has come out of those conversations is a better project that is respectful and aesthetically pleasing. The project is a result of years of input by and from the community. I want to thank the development team for their persistence and continued engagement with the neighborhood. I'm asking for your support of the project because it's located on Sunset Boulevard in a major commercial corridor. The largest part of the structure is on Sunset Boulevard as requested by the community, and it's in similar height and scale to other nearby buildings. The building's tiered architecture is designed to respect and complement the adjacent neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. WS and PUTO, and then we'll hear from C13. And before you begin, for those of you who filled out cards for 4 and 5 and you put them together, you need to fill out separate cards. We're taking up these items separately, so anyone who filled out a card and put on the top right-hand corner 4 and 5, you need to submit a separate card for number 5 if you haven't already, and you wish to speak on that item. Thank you. Go ahead.
The pig will address.
Yes, this is the problem. The Central Area Planning Commission fucked up another permit project, and that is why the appeals are angry. We must stop these goddamn appeals. The appellants are correct. The failure to communicate with the community is the problem. And that is why we must stop the Central Area Planning Commission from destroying what's left of Hollywood. When you drive, and yes, I hitch a ride now and then. I go down that fucking street. You cannot move in the traffic right now. More residential equals gridlock increasing. So please sustain the appeal. Send the project back upstairs to the 10th floor to those 4 beaches to get it correct. Thank you.
PUTO.
So you heard it, a modified 90-foot structure. And the issue deals with instability to create more homelessness. and bombard our neighborhoods with all this overgrowth, eyesores. So I suggest you appeal and sustain this project due to the lack of transparency and the inability to incorporate the community involvement. As you read on the next page, none submitted. No fucking community impact statement submitted. So the issue is about, yes, the 4 bitches in the Central Area Plan Commission, because they violate the rights of all the stakeholders and the shareholders that really live in a fucking community and don't want it fucked up. So I reserve my last 6 seconds to say,
All right. Stephen Slant? I don't understand the writing of the last name. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Stephen Slan. I'm an architect and property owner in the area for over 25 years. I'm on the board of directors for the Architecture and Design Museum. I'm all about great development and well-planned projects. This one is not one of them. There's a lot of inherent problems on how it's planned. It's grossly over-programmed with 300,000 square feet to rent, 830 cars being introduced into an area that's highly congested. I'm on that street 5 to 10 times a day. It takes me a long time to get past that intersection. During peak rush hour, there's no way for cars to move on and off of the property onto Bronson from where they planned their egress and ingress. There's it's two-way traffic, 1 lane each way. I don't know how you get 800 cars filtered onto that and get queued up to get onto the freeways in either way. It's also grossly overplanned as far as its bulk. There's no setbacks on the front, side yards. It's taken full advantage of an envelope and has not followed any guidelines in place.
Thank you. David Carrera.
Hello, my name is David Carrera. I'm a resident of Hollywood, and my daughter goes to Citizens of the World Charter, which is right next door to Sunset Bronson Studios. The developer has been absolutely amazing to our school and our neighborhood. They help us fundraise. They're always been there for us. It's not easy being next to a charter, and the life of having a charter as being a parent is very difficult. We even had a mother get run over in our crosswalk a couple years ago, and these guys were right there. I chaired Central Hollywood's Neighborhood Council's Plum Committee for like 10 years. I've worked with a lot of developers. These guys have really been fantastic, and they're the best. And Central Hollywood is really impacted by all these projects more than anywhere else in the city, and we rarely see development agreements or community benefits like we're getting here. So I do support the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Robertson from CD13.
Good afternoon, council members. Chris Robertson, Planning Director for Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell of the 13th District. We're here this afternoon to express our support for the proposed project. As you've heard, Hudson Pacific is a major stakeholder in Hollywood and an important presence on Sunset Boulevard with assets including Sunset Gower and Sunset Bronson Studios and Technicolor. Hudson's newest contribution, the Icon at Sunset Bronson Studios, currently under construction, will soon be home to Netflix, bringing close to 1,000 high-quality jobs to the area. The project before you today will continue the positive momentum we have been seeing in Hollywood by transforming an underutilized surface parking lot into a vibrant mixed-use development that will bring approximately 300,000 square feet of Class A office space to Sunset Boulevard, generating thousands of permanent and construction-related jobs, representing another multi-million-dollar investment in Hollywood and our local economy. Additionally, the project will bring more local-serving retail options to our residents, employees, and guests less than 3/4 of a mile from the Hollywood and Vine Metro Station. The proposed project will continue to foster a creative synergy across Sunset Boulevard, complementing Hollywood's artistic and creative history while fostering its 21st century future. Over the last year, the developer has worked closely with our office to draft a development agreement that commits $1.75 million towards various community benefits, including significant contributions to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, local schools, local nonprofits, the LAPD PALS program, and the CD13 Public Benefits Trust Fund, which our office has most recently used for medians, streetscape planning and design, and various traffic lights and pedestrian crossings. The DA also includes a PLA, which will help to ensure workforce diversity and local hiring during construction. We would like to thank the developer for working closely with us over the last year to redesign the building and finalize the community benefit package. The revised design is a considerable improvement to the building and its environment, translating to a cohesive aesthetic that will better contribute to the pedestrian experience and to the look and feel of Sunset Boulevard. We would also like to thank the Planning Department for their work and assistance throughout the design and development of this project. I've circulated 3 minor modifications to the development agreement that include 2 technical changes in addition to a requirement that payments delayed more than 2 years after the effective date of the DA be adjusted to the CPI. With that, we respectfully request that you incorporate the proposed modifications to the DA and recommend support of the project. Thank you very much. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Staff, are you here? Please come up to the podium. Hi, first, with respect to the they're adjacent to some residential units across an alleyway. And has this project complied with all rules and guidelines with respect to the proximity to a neighboring
Right,
neighbors?
so there were, Lucy Ibarra from the Planning Department, there were 2 references to the property adjacent to the site. One was that the existing P-1 zone of the property was intended to serve as a transitional lot to the R3 properties adjacent. That is not accurate. The P-1 zone is a surface parking lot zone. It also allows subterranean parking. That does not necessarily mean that you can use it, or it's never been defined anywhere in the general plan that it's a transitional zone. So contrary to that statement, that is not correct. I want to point out that one of the appellants mentioned that the noise analysis resulting from the revised project would result in a significant impact. That is also not correct. The appellant artfully and advantageously mischaracterizes the assertions in the EIR. The EIR actually says that loading dock facilities and trash compactors could generate noise levels of between 71 and 66 A-weighted decibels. What they're saying is that the location of the setback and the loading trucks moving through there is applicable to this threshold. That is not the case. The loading dock facilities and trash compactors are well outside of the 50-foot limitation that's described in the EIR. So what they're trying to do is misrepresent and misstate the findings of the EIR to their advantage. If I can move on to some of the other issues that were presented. So contrary to the appellant's blatant misrepresentation of the city's charter, the GPA in question is not improper. It does not constitute a violation of the city's charter. LAMC sections 11.5.6 and charter section 555 explicitly allows the city to consider amendments in whole or in part, provided that the part or area involved has significant social, economic, or physical identity. So the City Planning Commission's findings did make findings of social, economic, and physical identity. Also in the Department of City Planning's correspondence dated August 5th, for your consideration, we restate the findings that were made relative to the social, economic, and physical identity of this site, where we determined that when considered with the development in the recent area. This portion of Sunset Boulevard from Gower to Van Ness has contained two major motion picture and television studios for over 80 years. Sunset and Gower Studios is the former location for Columbia Studios, and the Sunset Bronson Studios was once owned by the Warner Brothers Studios, which is the site of the production of The Jazz Singer and the motion pictures industry's first motion picture with its soundtrack. The adjacent area has seen two plan amendments with regional center commercial designations, which reflect the significant economic and physical identity of the development of Hollywood as a studio and motion picture industry and of regional significance. There is assertions that the DA subsequently is also inconsistent as a result of the general plan amendment. They can say it as many times as they want, but the city has full discretion to consider general plan amendments. It's within our right, and they, despite quoting the general plan sections, those are the exact sections that give us the procedures and give us full discretion to consider and initiate amendments. There was a reference to the alternatives analysis, and specifically there was a mention that in one of the appellant letters that the alternatives didn't consider an alternative site. Typically, when a property owner has ownership or control over an alternative site, the EIR will consider a feasible alternative because it assumes that the property owner has full control of the property, and we can render an alternative that could feasibly and reasonably consider a project at an offsite location. In this instance, the property owner didn't have that alternative site or couldn't identify one where it could have full control. That being said, we can't violate someone's property rights if the developer doesn't have control to said property rights. There was a mention about the supplemental or the GHG analysis. I want to state that the EIR did include, and the record for this case includes a supplemental GHG analysis that was undertaken following the court's decision on the Center for Biological Diversity versus the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And the analysis confirmed the original assertions of the EIR, which determined that the impacts relative to GHG were less than significant with mitigation. There was a mention about Caltrans. The appellant claims that the city did not comply with Caltrans' requests relative to recent data and traffic methodology. I just want to state for the record that the EIR undertaken for this project did follow the MOU that was established between Caltrans and the Department of Transportation relative to the analysis of traffic impacts for adjacent streets and freeway facilities. When the traffic study did not result in the traffic impacts that Caltrans was looking for, Caltrans has the habit of asking for arbitrary analysis and to use unsubstantiated and unverified data to create mitigations in their favor. That being said, Caltrans has never been able to demonstrate, based on substantial evidence, that the project resulted in any significant impacts to their facilities, despite their having direct access to their own data, and despite having access to the project's data. They haven't been able to provide any evidence on the record to suggest that the findings of the traffic study were inconsistent or inadequate. And I think, just to restate, there was a mention that the project site is poorly served by transit. I want to point out to our letter of August 5th, which found that contrary to the appellant claims relative to high-capacity transit and whether this site is better served as secondary highway, the project is within a half mile of the Red Line, Hollywood Mine Station, and Hollywood Western stations, which had an annual ridership of over 46 million people in 2015. The project site is also served by regional and local metro bus lines, 2302, 180, 181, and 217, which collectively had an annual ridership of 11.5 million riders in 2015. The project is also served by LO DOT dash lines of Hollywood and Wilshire lines, which provide additional transit service. So contrary to previous claims, the site is well served by public transit. And unless you have any additional questions to any comments that were raised, I think that concludes our responses to the public comment.
So any deviation from setback requirements, and if there are, how were they able to get those deviations?
There's no deviations. This is a commercial zone, and for commercial purposes, there's no setback requirements.
Okay. Thank you. All righty, any other questions or comments? Seeing none. So review of the record and comments from the public and CD 13 will move to approve this item and move it to council. Moved, seconded.
Does your motion include an action on the appeals?
Yes, so we will deny the appeals and approve the GPA zone and height district changes.
Are you adopting the recommendations on the EIR as well and all the actions pursuant to the CPC actions?
Yes. All right, thank you. Seeing no objections, so ordered. Okay, we'll move on to item number 5. If we could read that into the record, please.
Item number 5 is consideration of the development agreement relative to the same project that was the subject of item number 4 at 5901 Sunset Boulevard.
Okay. On this item, if we could have the applicants come up, please. Chris Pearson, James Pugh, the applicants on the project. You guys have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, committee members. I'm Chris Pearson on behalf of Hudson Pacific Properties. I am happy to be here today to represent and present our development agreement. We've worked hard with the council office and the community to come up with benefits that we thought will be most impactful to the community. Those include $150,000 to support surrounding schools, $20,000 to support the Hollywood Police Activities League, $100,000 to the Visionary Youth Center, which works with impacted youth from violence-plagued neighborhoods, $25,000 for historic preservation in Hollywood, which is hugely important to the community, and another $455,000 for the CD13 Benefits Trust that will hopefully provide needed benefits to the surrounding community as well. This project entered into a lovely PLA with our friends in the trades. It's going to bring over 1,000 jobs to the area, good paying, to hardworking Angelinos, and we're really excited to present it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Plum Committee members. I'll be brief on the development agreement, just so we recognize what the context is of how the development agreement fits into the EIR. It's also one of the entitlements that was requested with the project. I think everyone can understand in this climate of development and the uncertainty that's being proposed by either serial litigants or a potential impending initiative on development projects, we think the development agreement is an important entitlement to go along with the project. But again, I want to stress that the development agreement is not for a long-term mega phased project as some other projects you could consider before you at certain times. Instead, as I mentioned, it's for a single building that's 15 stories high. Hudson has a commitment to developing to bring new tenants into the Hollywood market, similar to the tenants they've already brought, and they want to get this building on the market as soon as possible to continue the resurgence of Hollywood. So with that, I will say finally that the development agreement here has been discussed between Hudson, the city attorney, the city planning department as well. We believe it reaches a great balance. And again, it does chart some new territory. This project, being a commercial project, is contributing $1 million to affordable housing to help the affordable housing crisis in Los Angeles. That should be something I hope the Plum Committee takes into consideration, that Hudson's gone above and beyond with this development agreement. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel Wright, Jason Vogel, and George Abrams. This is now regular public comment on this item with 1 minute.
Good afternoon, Daniel Wright on behalf of the appellants as well.
with respect to this issue. With regard to the development agreement, it, of course, supports this project, which gets back to the development, the general plan amendment. How preposterous is it really to think that you can justify a general plan amendment based upon the association of this parcel of land with somebody? I mean, just because someone slept one night there or something like that, that's essentially based upon association with this parking lot. That's what you're saying your charter says. That's just facially invalid, and it's almost laughable that a planner would get up here and say that to you. In addition, with regard to the gifts here, it's chump change. The value that you're putting into the pocket is estimated at $20 million. They're giving you one. It's a bad deal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Honorable council members, let's get to the point. I raised 4 kids in Hollywood. My kids went to the local schools, including Joseph LeConte Middle School and on Bronson Avenue. I'm a developer. I'm a real estate person. I'm not a NIMBY. What this is I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on my property, fixing up a dilapidated property. What they're doing is they want to put an alley. There is no alley there now. They're calling it an alley. They're making an alley specifically for 18-wheeler trucks. It's the only thing that will be used. You can practically reach outside the window of these things and touch it. They're not helping housing. They're destroying housing. I just got a permit for 10 new apartments. I'm building apartments there. I'm building housing. They're going to destroy it. I can't build because there'll be no market. I have all these tenants who have been there. I've got all this housing right here, this beautiful housing, 10 more units, 6 of them handicap access, and they are destroying it. Where's the sense of fairness? I know they're a big developer, and I'm a small guy and a small builder and a small property owner, but I have rights. They don't have the right to come in and destroy what I've spent since 2002 building? Where's the decency? Where's the fairness?
George Abrams, Stephen Slan.
Yeah, the applicant's vitriolic attack on appellants demeans them, and it lowers the debate. Every citizen in our democratic process is entitled to a voice. Should cooks stick to their stew pots or programmers to their keyboards and be silenced on all other issues? AHF has every right to speak on planning issues. In fact, only 1/3 of 1% of all CEQA projects are ever challenged, and this is according to the Attorney General. Only bad projects are worth the effort to oppose, and it's just an unfortunate fact that so many of them are in Hollywood. But the developers don't want their building juggernaut slowed in any way. So every year there is a legislative push in Sacramento to gut CEQA, which is there to protect us from the bad projects that lower the quality of life for all Californians.
There's a rule in this committee that after public comment has begun on a certain item, we no longer take in public comment cards. So we've taken a few now. We're going to enforce that rule now. Apologize. Go ahead.
Okay. Adding to the considerable amount of cars as proposed for this development, it will choke all the streets in the area on a daily basis. This will greatly reduce the quality of life, make it unsafe for pedestrians trying to cross the road, will cause dangerous situations for children, bicyclists, and will ultimately reduce the residential property values. If approved in the manner that it's planned right now, it will set up an improper precedence for future developments in Hollywood. This project needs to be aggressively scaled back to within reason, and real traffic studies and environmental impact reports be properly looked at so that the obvious issues and problems can be mitigated before any type of approval is granted.
Thank you. Doug Haynes, David Carrera.
Hi, my name is Doug Haynes. I actually want to address the development agreement, which is what this agenda item is about. First off, the Hollywood City District Neighborhood Council, as I mentioned, hasn't taken a position on this, but we want clarification and information regarding many aspects of this project, particularly on this development agreement, where this money goes. Quite frankly, this public benefits package, and if I may have everyone's attention, I do apologize for requesting it, but on this public benefits package, my impression is more of a shakedown of the developer than anything else. I think it has been expressed by many people who have come here. This developer doesn't need to provide public benefits to justify what they're doing, in a sense, as far as this development. They've certainly spread money around this community in a wide swath. So Hollywood Heritage has removed themselves as part of this public benefits package. This was created by CD13. I would ask that CD13 go into a little bit more about what this is. There is a neighborhood segment that would be significantly impacted, and it needs a lot more than the money that's been allocated of only $88,000. That's the sort of public benefit that we need, not money that's directed in a manner that nobody knows where it eventually ends up. And I would ask that Ms. Robinson explain this to us better. Thank you.
Thank you. David Carrera, Beverly Palmer, Laurent Gubler.
Hi, David Carrera. I already gave my comments under the last item, so thank you.
Thank you. Beverly Palmer, Laurent Gubler, and Chris Barton.
Beverly Palmer, I'm speaking on behalf of AIDS Healthcare Foundation. The council cannot approve the development agreement. The project is not consistent with existing zoning. Like it or not, the Hollywood Community Plan is still the law, and the project, a development agreement must be for a project that is consistent with applicable zoning. Moreover, the project has numerous impacts. The 80-page plus GHG analysis was submitted today. There's been no time for the public to review it. Noise and air quality, we haven't had time to adequately study those. My expert took the noise data directly from Appendix G of the EIR, contrary to what the planning staff said about misrepresentation. It was from the technical worksheets that were provided in the EIR that were not provided with the supplemental analysis. The benefits of the development agreement, there's nothing for traffic or for Caltrans. There's not real affordable housing. Send it back to planning, come back with a better project and a better deal for the community. Thank you.
Laurent Gubler, Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. When I came to Hollywood 24 years ago, companies were leaving right and left. And there was a real question as to whether Hollywood would remain a viable business district. In addition to that, we lost over 200,000 square feet through adaptive reuse. And then when Hudson Pacific came in 2007 and purchased Sunset Gower Studios, we were relieved because the other bidders would have torn that studio down and turned it into housing. Not that we didn't need housing, but we needed to preserve Hollywood as a viable commercial district. Let me just say, Hudson Pacific has been a tremendous partner in preserving Hollywood as a viable business district. And their commitment shown with this project and the other projects that they have done is a huge community benefit. But beyond that, let me say this package that they are doing for the city is tremendous. It's in line with the Chamber's mission of what should be done in Hollywood. We appreciate their community betterment package and thank them for that. Thank you.
Thank you. To our city attorney, did you speak already? Did we call you? No? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry, Chris Barton. And before you go on, to our city attorney, after this gentleman, we have two speakers who have spoken about 7 minutes already on today's agenda total. I know that in full council, we have a rule that they can only speak 5 minutes, I believe, or whatever time allotted. Does that apply to committees as well?
It doesn't currently apply to this committee, but this committee can adopt that at a future time. But under today's rules, it doesn't apply.
Okay, so this committee would so each committee for the city council has to adopt its own rules?
Unless city council takes a separate action. But that's something that we can come back and report on and work with your office in pursuing.
Okay, can you report back at the next plum meeting as to whether we have to adopt our own separate rules or if the full city council meetings apply to committee?
I'll look into it.
Thank you.
Yes.
And if they do not apply, please prepare whatever language you deem necessary so that it's reflective of the full council meetings in terms of the full allotted time where speakers will have time to speak. Because I believe that if someone is concerned and wants to speak on an item that it affects them or generally affects the quality of life in the city with respect to land use and planning issues. 5 minutes is more than sufficient time that they don't have to come here and speak on each and every item. Okay, one more speaker on this. Yeah.
Thank you again, Chris Martin with Hudson Pacific Properties. I just want to again emphasize that this development agreement is a very well thought out agreement that had a lot of input from obviously us, CD13 representatives, and community stakeholders. And again emphasize that we want to contribute to the affordable housing crisis that's happening here in LA, even though we're not residential builders. We don't build it, we don't own it, but we recognize the problem, we care about the area, and want to do a good thing in that regard. Lastly, we did introduce a letter of the record to make a small modification to clause 7.7 of the assignment, replacing solely with to the word without, with regards to the assignment of the agreement that comes about. And we're trying to do that to resolve any convoluted problems that we could have with our financing or JV partnership in actually building this building.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. WS, and then PUTO, and is Chris Robertson from CD13 here still? Do you wish to, you submitted some language, do you wish to speak on this as well? Okay.
Yes, thank you, Madam City Attorney. I know the bald-headed one attempted to suppress. Now, number 5 again is the failure. The enmity of the people being fucked versus the machine.
WS, this is on the development agreement for this project. Can you speak to this item, please? Otherwise, you are not on topic, and we will ask you to stop.
Because I'm talking about the relationship of approving these permits versus applicants in the community. The community is not being heard. You're listening but not hearing the community. The community is receiving
I'm sorry,
quid pro
WS,
quo.
I'm going to have to ask you to stop.
This is about the permit.
You have been asked to stop. Thank you. You are not speaking on this item. You're speaking in generalities, and you've repeated the same generality in other agenda items. This is your warning that you've disrupted this meeting. The next time you disrupt it, you'll be asked to leave. PUTO?
Spanish, they call that word puto, but in English, it's called me. Dealing with CD13, Mitchell Farrell. Again, the people have spoken. The city attorney representing us has spoken and says, let there be transparency. Give them the time of their 1 fucking minute to express
Mr.
their
Herman,
opinion.
you are not on topic. This is about the development agreement with respect to this project.
And item 5 deals with the same item as a reflection of item 4, what the instability of housing and the appeal to sustain this further action. So the EIR, the physical impact statement, which states on this agenda, yes, but you heard it from the people, no. They're asking for transparency. As the gentleman showed us those pictures, it's just a bogus bunch of bullshit of just bullshit. You're overcrowding our neighborhoods. We want to have a view when we look out the windows, and we want to be able to understand that the subject of approval
Thank you. Chris
does not
Robinson
approve
from
with
CD13.
our ideas.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. Again, Chris Robertson, Planning Director for Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell. I already stated our office's position in my previous testimony, and as you mentioned, I circulated a number of revisions we'd like to see incorporated into the development agreement. The applicant did submit a request to amend the assignment provision in the DA. We understand that that request is on par with planning's current practice, and for that we support the request. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have the planning department please come up? Okay, there's been a request to change the assignment provision of this
Correct.
to say that the assignment can't go, it could be assigned to someone other than those on the development agreement. Is that standard practice in the city?
The standard language of the development agreement has been in there for approximately 20 years since it was revised. It was changed to the Planning Commission by one of our commissioners and adopted by the Commission. That's the new standard language the Commission has pretty much adopted on about 3 or 4 other development agreements.
Okay.
These
All
are
right.
legal language that is worked out by the city attorney and whatnot as we go through the
This
process.
is language that we have in standard boilerplate language that we use in most development agreements for the city of LA. Okay. Now, all that means is that if it is assigned, they would still have to follow whatever rules and regulations with respect to using public monies and the rules under the development agreement. So the drawback is that we're not aware at this point in the approval where the money goes, correct?
As it goes through the process, correct.
Yeah,
We
so-
have before you is basically what was adopted by the Planning Commission on the table that's before you. Those, as it goes through the process, can change sometimes, but right now,
All right.
that's basically what you have before
Got you. That's a discussion for another day if the city wishes to continue on that path, and I'll have those discussions with you and the city attorney and others in the planning department. But for now, we'll amend it to allow for that to occur and keep it standard. What was the proposed language?
I don't have it, so.
Yeah, what's the proposed language? To keep the standard language?
I believe the standard language is it just stays in whole, and the language that was adopted by the Planning Commission was on whole or in part.
Okay.
The language that was suggested by the Planning Commission was assigned in whole and part by the developer to a transferee solely with the consent of the city. And the change being proposed by the applicant is to change that to assigned in whole or in part by the developer to a transferee without the consent of the city.
Without, and that's standard language in the city. that we use.
Our language was the solely with the consent
With the consent of the city.
of the city.
Oh, that's our standard language. Oh, okay. Oh, I thought it was the other way around. So, CD 13, can I get your guidance on this, please?
No, that's the standard language that we use now. Right, based on our advice. Yeah.
It sounds like it's a standard language. Okay, don't get excited.
Those are committee rules. How is it not, how has it changed since for the last 10 years?
5 minutes for each item.
No, total, cumulative, not for each item. Each committee shall provide an opportunity to the public to address it on each item for cumulative total.
Oh, cumulative 5 minutes for each item.
So, council members, the decision that's before you is whether or not, as a policy matter, you want to keep the language as CPC has recommended to you, which is without the consent of the city, or if you would take the suggestion or the request from the applicant to change the language to without the consent.
Okay, we have nothing written before us, and so the only reason I'm entertaining this is because I thought the local council office agreed with it, but in further figuring out what this actually means, we need some clarification on that. So,
Chris Robertson, Planning Director for Mitch O'Farrell's office. If I could clarify, I think our understanding was that planning didn't usually incorporate this language. The City Planning Commission has recently changed policy to include it. So perhaps if the committee could direct the city attorney to work with the planning department in our office to make this DA consistent with city planning policy as it has existed for
and
most
it was
cases.
helpful that these proposed changes to the development agreement from CD 13 were in writing so we could read them, our staffs could read them, we could get a sense. Since this was verbally submitted and we do not know what exactly it means, we're not going to spend much more time trying to hash out what it means. So I'd recommend is that we just take the CD13 amendments, and if CD13 wishes to propose this in full council when this comes up, at that time would be an appropriate time to make that amendment. Okay, if that's okay. Instead of us trying to figure out here exactly what that means. Okay. All right. Thank you. So what's before? Any other questions or comments? No. Okay. What's before us is the development agreement and some proposed revisions to that agreement by CD13. We'll incorporate those and approve the development agreement, and then move this forward to full council. So moved. Cedillo, Mr. Harris Dawson, second. Any objections? Seeing no objections, so ordered. Thank you. Next item.
Item number 6 is the historic designation for the Gage House, also known as the Knutson House, at 2706 South Wigtown Road.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, council members. Ken Bernstein with the Department of City Planning, Office of Historic Resources. The Cultural Heritage Commission on May 19th voted unanimously 5-0 to declare the subject property a historic cultural monument, finding that it met 2 of the Cultural Heritage Ordinance criteria. First, as an excellent example of Tudor Revival style architecture, and secondly, as a notable work of master architect William J. Gage. The property was built in 1933, designed by architect William J. Gage for the Knutson family, the owners of the successful Knutson Dairy Company. And the Cultural Heritage Commission did request, in taking its action, that the name of the historic cultural monument be changed. It was submitted to our office as the Gage House. The Commission felt that it was not appropriate to name the house for the project architect and requested that staff come back to council with a recommendation of a new name. And staff is recommending the appropriate name should be the Knutson House, after the original family owners of the property.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll go to public comment now. James Ryan.
Good afternoon. My name is James Ryan. Thank you so much for taking the time to hear about this very beautiful and historic property. As Mr. Bernstein said, the Knutson House is located at 2706 Wigtown Road in the beautiful neighborhood of Cheviot Hills on Los Angeles' west side. It was built in 1933 by architect William Gage, who is one of the most famous and accomplished architects in the history of Los Angeles. One of his most famous works is being the architect of the Beverly Hills City Hall, which has magnificent pioneering architecture and is a beloved local, state, and national historic landmark. Right after designing the Beverly Hills City Hall, Gage's next project was designing this house at Wigtown Road. And it really is one of the best remaining early examples of English Tudor single-family residences in all of Los Angeles. Among Gage's other works are the Durex Model Home on Amesbury Avenue in Los Feliz, which is listed as a Los Angeles Historic Cultural Monument. Do I have 5 minutes or 1?
I believe you have 5 minutes.
Okay, great. So the Durex Model Home is listed as a historic cultural monument. Gage was very involved in civic life in Los Angeles, and he attended many social galas with Mary Pickford at the Pickfair Estate, which is kind of remarkable to think about that. And so he was very sought after by Hollywood's elite to design their homes. And this house is no different. It was designed for the Knutson family of the world-famous Knutson Dairy Company, which I'm sure anyone that grew up in LA knows that company well. They were very high profile and prominent in 1930s Los Angeles. The house itself is a beautiful 2-story English Tudor home full of many character-defining features of the Tudor Revival design. Gage did wonderful architecture both inside and out, and it still is in such amazing original condition. Whether it's the outside cantilevered second floor pop-outs, the ornate strap work, the varied eave-line heights, or the beautiful original casement windows or projecting oriel bay windows that surround the property, which actually were handmade on-site by sash makers in 1933. Inside the home, it has beautiful mahogany flooring throughout the home, a beautiful grand 13 by 20 foot living room with a wonderful 18-foot vaulted Philippine mahogany exposed beam ceiling, which is so beautiful and grand to look at. It's really breathtaking. I know the commissioners who toured the property felt the same way when you walk in and you look up and you see how grand and beautiful the home is. There's actually this wonderful juxtaposition between the old Hollywood glamour that Gage had in mind when he designed the home, knowing it was going to be for a high-end Hollywood elite family, knowing in the 30s that social galas and gatherings were going to be very common, especially at this home. So there's that juxtaposition with the wonderful English Tudor architecture, which is really one of a kind. It's rare to see such a great balance between architecture and functional living. The den right adjacent to the living room has floor-to-ceiling mahogany wood paneling, which is original, and the deep, rich texture. You can see the grains and the knots from the trees in the wood. It's so remarkable that the home is in such amazing condition. And whether it's the cross-beam box coffered ceiling in the dining room or the wonderful, ornate, handcrafted wooden built-ins that are all throughout the property, such as one that Gage put in the master bedroom, a vanity, which you could also almost imagine a Hollywood starlet in the 30s sitting there doing her hair and makeup. It's so reminiscent of old Hollywood glamour. While at the same time, there's amazing beams subtly coming in from outside from the steeply pitched roof, which give it that English Tudor design. So with these elements, it is so remarkable that Gage designed this home the way he did. And at the last hearing with the commission, a former owner attended, the longest owner. He's now in his late 70s, and it was just fascinating to listen to him talk about how when he was a kid in the early 1950s, his father bought this home. And the way he remembers it back then as a kid is literally identical to the way it looks now. And I just think that's a wonderful thing, especially in a neighborhood where there is a lot of construction and even just gutting homes. It's really remarkable that this home, being designed by William Gage, right after he designed the Beverly Hills City Hall, being one of the best remaining early examples of English Tudor design in Los Angeles, and being in such amazing original condition, looking identical to the way it looked over 80 years ago. I think it would be a wonderful thing for the city of Los Angeles, and especially the neighborhood of Cheviot Hills and its people, to have this home listed as an historic cultural monument. Thank you very much.
Sean, we're okay with that? Are we? Okay, thanks. Thank you. So I've been informed that we actually have adopted the rules for full city council, and there's two speakers here that have spoken over the limit. I'll read them into the record, WS and PUTO. So thank you for your participation in today's meeting, but unfortunately you have no more time left. Antonia Ramirez, not here. Jim Bighart from Councilmember Paul Koretz's office.
Yes, Jim Bighart from Council District 5. The council office supported this nomination at the Cultural Heritage Commission, and we continue to support it before you. So we urge you to give it a positive push toward the full council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. There are no other public cards, correct? The owners or no one else? Anyone else submit the? There was a letter submitted to the record by the owner, but he's not here. They're not. Whoever they are, not here today, correct? Well, they didn't submit cards. There's no other cards, correct?
No other cards.
Okay, thank you. So, given the testimony by the representatives and our record before us, we'll move to adopt the nomination by the commission and move this to full council. Any objections on this item? Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Just a reminder, in taking the action, if you could amend the monument name to the Knutson House from the Gage House as recommended by staff.
With that amendment. Okay. Thank you. Next item is item number 12, correct?
Yes. Item number 12 is, I believe, is a closed session item.
Okay.
Relative to, if you want to go into closed session, relative to the case of Friends of Highland Park versus City of Los Angeles.
Okay, let's do this then. We need to clear the room. This is a closed session item. Only members of the city staff that are required to be in this room should remain in the room. All others are asked to please exit. If you want to come back, we have one remaining item after this, which is general public comment. As of right now, we have no general public comment available to us, and no one signed up that qualifies to speak. So, but that is one fine remaining agenda item. So as soon as we clear. Okay, we'll reopen this meeting into open session. We have just concluded a closed session on Friends of Highland Park versus City of LA. Mr. Cedillo, do you have an action, or should I read something in the record? What's your wish?
For the record, Adrian Corsani, City Attorney's Office, just to state, no reportable action was taken pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.1A3.
Okay, and on this matter, we've been directed by the court to set aside the adoption of the M&D for the Highland Park Transit Village project, as well as its related entitlements. So we have been asked to suspend all activity to implement the project until the city could reconsider its actions and bring them into compliance with SEQA requirements should the developer wish to pursue them along with the city. So we'll take that action at this time. Anything to add to that?
Just that they, well, as I said, this is a poster child for abuse of CEQA.
You can speak into the microphone, I think we. Yeah.
This is the poster child for abuse of CEQA. This is a project that has been worked on for years and years. Fortunately, we have a developer who has not abandoned us and who is committed to complying both to the letter and the spirit of the instructions by the appellate court, is prepared to move forward and is committed to moving this project at a time when there is this robust discussion about affordability and housing in the city. This is an example of how CEQA has been abused, but nonetheless we remain committed to moving this project forward, and thank you for your leadership and the city attorney in helping us move this forward as soon as possible.
Thank you. So with that, we have the motion before us to set aside adoption of the M&D and all related entitlements, suspend all activity to implement the project until the city could reconsider its actions and bring them into compliance with CEQA requirements, and that will be the action with no objections. Okay. Thank you. So ordered. Any I have no general public comment cards. I believe that concludes this meeting. Thank you.